Okay, so good day, everyone. We have the pleasure today to welcome our speaker, Dr. Nelly Pustelnik. Nelly is a CNRS researcher at the Physics Department of École Normale Supérieure de Lyon. She is currently a visiting professor at the Institute of Information and Communication Technologies, Electronics and Applied Mathematics of UC Louvain in Belgium. Her research interests include theoretical developments and contributions in optimization, image restoration and segmentation, texture analysis, machine learning, and hyperparameter selection, with several real-world applications to tomography, physics, such as multi-phase flows, internal waves, and astronomical imaging. Currently, she is the PI of a research project funded by the French National Research Agency on the development of new multi-resolution approaches and optimization methods for image segmentation. And she's also serving as senior associated editor for the IEEE journal, The Signal Processing Letters, and associated editor for IEEE Transactions and Image Processing. Today, Nelly will tell us about her work on a joint estimation and contour detection in large-scale image processing. As usual, I remind the audience that in case they have questions, please to use the chat or the Q&A button. Also during the talk, I keep an eye on that so that in case there are questions during the talk, I read them to Nelly, or we can, of course, have a Q&A session right at the end, where you will be also allowed to unmute yourself to interact with her. And I think I leave now the stage to Nelly, and I wish you all to enjoy the talk.
So thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity today to present this work. So I'm going to talk about contour detection in large-scale image processing, and my main the work today will be I'm going to present is made in collaboration with Barbara Pascal, Patrice Abri, Marion Foard, and Laurent Combat. So first, to motivate my purpose about interface detection, I'm going to focus on two specific problems that we study in the physics lab. The first one is a problem in multi-phase flow, where we want to test innovative materials for catalytic process. And the idea is to study the effect of confinement on hydrodynamics and mass transfer. So to do that, what you are considering is this kind of experiment where you have a LA cell, which means that you have two thin plates of glasses. Inside you have the porous medium you want to analyze, and inside this porous medium you have liquid inside. From the bottom you inject gas, and then from that you want to study the hydrodynamics. So just to let you see an example of the kind of image and video we need to analyze, here is an example. So you should see some bubble of gas moving inside the liquid. And you can see it quite clearly on the video, but if I'm stopping the video, you can see that it's now much more complicated to identify where are the bubble of gas and where is the liquid. So first thing that you can do in order to improve the image you want to analyze is to take your video at a frame t and divide this video by the frame at the time t0. And in that case, you obtain such an image here. So if I zoom on it, you can see here the bubble of gas, and outside you can see the liquid. And here the complicated task is to detect the interface between the gas and the liquid. So the two challenges are extracting this interface from this textured image, but also the fact that we deal with a large-scale data. Because the image is composed with a large number of pixels, you have a video to analyze. And the point is that even after analyzing one video, by doing that, you just obtain one point in a phased diagram. And so you need to reproduce this kind of experiment several times. Another kind of application, which is going to motivate my purpose, is an application on Vogt transfer matrix estimation. So the idea is the following: when you have two elections, so for each candidate, you know the number of votes, the proportion of vote for each candidate at the first, for the first election and for the second one. And what you want to do is to estimate the transfer matrix. So the proportion of people voting from first candidate and then voting to the other one. So you can see that obtaining this matrix can be done at the scale of a country. So in that case, you have just one matrix, but more from the societal point of view, it's more interesting to do that for each vote location. And so in that case, you estimate a matrix for each vote location, which means that you have also a huge number of parameters to estimate. In such an approach, you see that if you want to accurately estimate your matrix, you need to add prior, and some prior could be that between two matrices, the behavior the matrix should be closed in general, except maybe at some location due to some geographical transition. So the common point in these two applications is that you have structured data. For the first one, it's images. For the second one, you have graph. Then it's difficult to label data. And you have large-scale data. More generally, for numerous applications in physics and societal problems, the truth is not as sharp as just clustering or segmentation. And most of the time, it's more appropriate to allow us for a piecewise smooth behavior, as illustrated on this image. And so this is the motivation of our work. So in order to extract interface in the image, you have numerous work in the literature to do that. So here I provide you a timeline highlighting some major methods allowing to detect interface, such as Potts model, Blake-Zisserman, Mumford-Shah, Chanves, etc. And so you see that most of the models were developed during these 20 years here. Now we are going to focus a bit more on the method behind this model in order to understand them a bit more. So typically, when you want to deal with interface, a model which is well known in the literature and that I'm going to present now is the Mumford-Shah model. The Mumford-Shah model aims to minimize standard data fidelity term and a penalization. But the novelty of this model is that you have the image you want to estimate from the degraded one, but you also have the set of discontinuities in your image that you want to estimate. So to do that, you have the fidelity term, and then you have two prior. One prior, which is here to impose smoothness everywhere in your image, except on the set of discontinuities. And you have a penalization in order to constrain the length of the set of discontinuities. So typically, if G model your noisy data, then the U you are going to estimate is represented on this image, and the set of discontinuities are represented in red. So on the timeline that I presented before, I presented several other methods, and actually they can be more or less related to this model. And here I present most of them in the discrete setting. So typically, when you talk about Ambrosio Tortorelli, so it was initially proposed at this time, but you have recent development related to Ambrosio Tortorelli, and they are referred here. And the idea is also to minimize L2 data term, penalization to impose smoothness everywhere except on the set of discontinuities. So in the rest of the presentation, E is going to denote the set of discontinuity. And I will redetail it later in my presentation. And here you have a penalization of the set of discontinuities. So this is the Ambrosio-Tortorelli model, and from this one, you can extract U and E. Then you have plenty other works where the way to proceed is different. You first estimate U by minimizing a L2 norm plus a penalization term involving du, where d most of the time is the discrete difference operator, as it was here. And then you have several choices for P. For instance, if you have a L0 penalization, you obtain the Potts model. If P denotes quadratic L2, then you have a Blake-Zisserman model. And if you have the standard mixed L2 norm, you have the TV denoising model. Then from this U that you have estimated by minimizing this criterion, then you can extract the contour. And recently you have a nice work by Kai Steidl allowing to provide a link between the thresholded ROF and the original Mem-Forcha model. And you have also, in order to extract interface, the Chan-Vessey model. So here I have presented the different models formally, and it's interesting to see how they behave. So I'm going to consider a first image, which is a standard image where you have 3 labels. And so the original image is here, the noisy image is here, and here you have the different methods that I presented: Chan-Vess, TV, Potts, TROF, and DMS, which is also related to Ambrosio-Tortorelli. So this method allows to extract the contour in a red here and an estimated image. But what you can see is that if your image is just composed with 3 levels of intensity, methods such as Chan-Vess, TV, Potts, and TROF will work very well. A discrete Mem-Forcha version also, but probably it's not the best choice. Now, if you have an original image which is close to the previous one, but where you have constant error and some error where you have a smooth behavior inside, so here it's the noisy image, what you can see is that the Chan-Vessey method, TV, TROF, or Potts method, Chan-Vess, TROF, and Potts method give you a solution with 3 labels as expected, because they are designed for that, especially Potts if you select a large value of the regularization parameter. Now for Potts, if you select a smaller parameter, then you obtain an image with more level. For TV, you see that the result is maybe closest from the original one, and with DMS, as expected, you obtain something which is smooth in this area, constant here, and you are also able to extract the interface. So in this sense, the discrete Mem-Forcha model is more adapted to our physics problem that I presented at the beginning. So now the contribution I'm going to present in this work are twofold. The first one is more dedicated to the TROF model, and the question behind is how to perform texture segmentation. So what you have to keep in mind is that most of the time when you do texture segmentation, what you are doing is first extracting descriptors to model the texture and then apply a method of segmentation. Here we are going to combine both in the criterion we want to minimize, and the objective of that is to improve the interface detection by combining the estimation of the descriptor and the segmentation. This is also the case for this second application, where this time we are going to focus on Ambrosio-Tortorelli and discrete Mem-Forcha model. And this time we are going to focus on this criterion where we want to estimate both U and E simultaneously. And the question we will have is how much can we play with the data fidelity term, with the penalization, in order to be able to have fast algorithm allowing to deal with large-scale data, and also to have algorithm with convergence guarantees. So the first part of my talk was dedicated to the models. And now, in order to go further in the description of the method I'm going to present, we need a few additional concepts: wavelets, sparsity, and proximal algorithm. So interestingly, it's you see that on this timeline that the concept I'm talking about start, let's say, with the soft thresholding of Donoho here. So let's introduce the notation with respect to this concept that we will need further. So first, wavelet is very useful in image processing because it's a sparse representation of most natural signals. For instance, if you have this image G, so it's a picture of the city of Lyon, and if you perform a wavelet decomposition, so here is the filter implementation of a wavelet transform. So the way that it works is the following: you perform, for instance, to obtain this diagonal coefficient, you are going to perform high pass filtering over the row, followed by a decimation, and then also a pass filtering over the column, followed by a decimation, and you will obtain this diagonal wavelet coefficient. Then to obtain the horizontal and the vertical wavelet coefficient, you combine high pass filtering on the row with low pass filtering on the column, or on the inverse, depending if you want to obtain the vertical or the horizontal coefficient. And then you obtain here a low pass on the row times a low pass on the column, and it gives you, in a sense, your image at a lower resolution. And then you can reproduce this scheme of high pass filtering combined with low pass filtering in order to obtain a wavelet coefficient at another scale. Interestingly, the link between the wavelet coefficient denoted by zeta in my presentation and G, the image, is the following, involving the F, which is a linear transform. So from this wavelet transform, what you can observe is that, so a nice property of the wavelet is that it provides you a sparse representation of the image, but another nice property is that if you consider the wave decomposition of your image, and if you have noise in your image, the noise will be spread out everywhere in your coefficient. And a good way to remove this noise is to apply a soft thresholding. The soft thresholding will put to zero the coefficient between the value minus lambda and lambda if you perform a thresholding of parameter lambda, and the other value remains more or less the same with a small variation of lambda. Then from the thresholded coefficient, then you go back to the original image by performing an inverse wavelet transform. So by doing that, we would like to notice two things. First, that the soft thresholding expressed here is related to the proximity operator of the L1 norm parameterized by the parameter lambda, which means that it's a minimization problem of this form where you have a data term plus a penalization involving the parameter lambda and the L1 norm. The proximity operator actually is much more general than that. It can be defined for a function phi, so in gamma 0 of h, which means that it's the class of convex, lower, semi-continuous, and proper function. And the proximity operator of f is more generally defined as the arg minimum of phi plus a quadratic term. You have a lot of closed form expression in the literature for the proximity operator. So for instance, I already presented to you the one associated to the absolute value, and you also have the closed form expression for the prox of the L1 norm. But it's also the case for the proximity of the L21 norm, also the case for the proximity operator of the LP norm power P, of the proximity operator of the Kullback-Leibler divergence, and for some overlapping group norm. And you have also many other proximity operators with closed form. And you can go to the prox repository developed by Kierkia, Chuznu, Combet, and Pesquet, where you have all the derivation, and you have all the associated reference, and you have also the code to compute this proximity operator. So now if we go back to our self-thresholding, we see that U at was expressed that F star self-thresholding lambda Fg. So self-thresholding can be replaced by the proximity operator of lambda L1. So it's what I did here. And then by some property of the proximity operator, you can rewrite it like that. As the proximity operator of the L1 norm composed with the linear operator F, which is the wavelet transform. And you can rewrite then the proximity operator as EL2 norm plus a penalization involving the L1 norm on the wavelet coefficient parameterized by lambda. And so then you see that it's also directly related to the first model that I presented at the beginning. So from this remark, then there were a lot of development about proximal algorithm when you want then to minimize much more complex functions. So for instance, when in the data fidelity term, you have a linear operator, when you can have not just one penalization, but also additional constraints. And more generally, when you want to minimize a sum of, let's say, S function, lower, semi-continuous, and proper, involving a linear operator S. And so in the literature, you can refer to the book of Boschke and Combet, but you also have very nice tutorial by Combet and Pesquet, Parikh and Boyd, Conda, more dedicated to primal dual approach, and also a recent work by Chambol and Pock, more dedicated to image processing, providing a lot of information about all these proximal algorithms. So for, let's say, the most known are probably the forward backward, which is adapted when you have just a sum of two functions, and one function is Lipschitz differentiable. You have a DMM when you have to invert, but the limitation is that you have to invert the sum of LS star, which can be complicated sometimes. And you have primal dual approach, which are very flexible and for many problems are very useful. And more recently, you have also proximal alternating algorithm dedicated in the context where the function is not anymore convex. So now I have introduced all the concept. I can go into the detail of the method we proposed. And I'm going to start on texture segmentation. So in order to characterize the texture, we also are going to use wavelets, but in a completely different way that I presented before. We are not going to use wavelet a sparse transform, but for other property that wavelet are. So in order to understand the fact that the spectrum of the wavelet is very large, I can use this graph extracted from a work by Morini and collaborators, where they extract all the reference with the word wavelets in citation database. And from all this reference, they identify cluster. And to identify cluster, they consider two papers with two papers are close if you have a lot of common references. And by doing that, they were able to identify some cluster of method related to the wavelet and how this method changed during time. So here you can see the foundation of wavelets, and then how it was used for solving inverse problems, sparsity in image analysis. You also have frame, which was very useful for solving inverse problem. And you have another part which is interesting for us now, is all this panel related to multifractal analysis, and more generally to the scale-free behavior that you can capture with wavelets. So when we deal with texture, most of the time you have to distinguish two kinds of texture. You have to distinguish geometric texture and stochastic texture. So geometric texture means that you have a periodicity inside, while stochastic texture, what we are going to assume is that these textures are scale-free. And so here is the multiphasic flow experiment that I've presented at the beginning. So now if I'm just taking a row in this image, you can see that if you consider a periodic texture, it can be seen as a sinusoidal signal. So here it's a signal with two characteristic frequencies. And if you plot the log frequency, log power plot, you can clearly see the two frequencies present in the image. Now, if you have a sinusoidal signal plus noise, this time you will obtain this kind of behavior with still your two main frequency, but a noise also present a bit everywhere, especially in the high frequency. And now if you do the same thing, but with a monofractal signal, you can observe this scale-free property. And we are going to use the fact that, you know, a monofractal signal will be characterized by this slope here. And if you have two different kinds of texture, you will have two different slope. And our objective will be to estimate the slope at each location of the image in order to perform the segmentation. So as you can see, it will be very difficult because the slope need to be estimated in a specific neighborhood to have an accurate estimation. So a good way to have access to this slope is to have recourse to wavelets. So here is the F, which was also the discrete wavelet transform presented before. Here are the wavelet coefficient. So here is the wavelet coefficient associated to the high pass filtering. So typically either the diagonal coefficient, the horizontal or the vertical coefficient. And on this scheme, I represented, you see, the wavelet coefficient at different scales. So typically, if you focus on the diagonal coefficient, you put this image here, this image here, and you continue like that for the different scale. And the quantity that will be interesting for us in the following is not just the wavelet coefficient, but it will be the supremum of the wavelet coefficient in some specific neighborhood. And by using this quantity, which is called the wavelet leaders, and they've been proposed by Wendt and collaborators, you are able to have a relation between the wavelet leaders and the slope in the presentation that I give previously, and this slope is going to characterize your texture as the slope model H model also the local regularity. So once you have this relation, what you can do if you want to have access to the H is to perform a regression over the log of the wavelet leaders. So if you do that and you select your weight in a nice way in order to avoid to have a biased solution, then you obtain this estimate H. So you see that the estimate is very noisy. And so here is the mask, so is the segmented image you want to recover at the end. Here is the texture generated from this mask. So you have two different kinds of texture at this location and outside. And you see that maybe you can see a small change of local regularity H between this area and this area, but it's not obvious to extract an accurate interface here. So a way to improve this result is to integrate the H estimated from linear regression into, for instance, a TV denoising model. So you have the data term, you want to estimate H close to this H hat, but this time you are going to favor piecewise constant behavior. And you see that if you are minimizing such a strategy, you obtain this kind of result, which is not so bad, at least better than this one. But from our point of view, it was not sufficient. And we tried to improve over that. And the first solution we propose is to now not only learn the H, but also learn the weight. So what is the objective behind that? The objective is to let some flexibility in the estimation. We allow a bit of bias in our estimation of our H in order to improve the segmentation performance. So now we're minimizing U and W. So this is the data term, the TV penalization, and here we have some constraints in order to impose that the W will be not so far from the unbiased solution. And so this criterion stay convex, as you can see here, and the distance to C is also convex. So we can use some standard method to minimizing a sum of three functions involving a linear operator and having a smooth data term. So we propose to use Kondavue algorithm. So the result we obtain by doing that is the following. So this time you can see that we improve the estimation, and especially the interface are better reconstructed. So you can also do the same thing with real image, because this is often something which is a limitation of our method. People say, okay, but most of the texture are not scale-free. And so we decided to test it on some more standard textured image. And here are two state-of-the-art methods. Here is the estimate we obtain with just performing the TV. So we first extract HA and then perform TV on the descriptor. So we obtain this solution, which is not so bad. And here is the solution when you estimate both the weight and the H. And you see that the results are quite good. The problem is that this method, the results in terms of segmentation are not too bad. It's a convex formulation. We combine estimation and segmentation, but the problem is the computational cost. And if you remind to the original problem I presented to you about multi-phase flow, if the method is not sufficiently fast, we will not be able to apply it on real data. So what we proposed is to completely start from the beginning for our modelization and try to change the data term of our problem and see if it allows us to have maybe a different criterion, but allows a better estimation. So in order to do that, we go back to this work by Jafar, allowing to relate the wavelet leaders with the local regularity. You see that if you take the log of this quantity, and of this quantity you obtain this relation. And so what we propose is to estimate this time the Vn and the Hn. So H is the slope and V is the y-intercept. And it can be seen as the local power, including a local variance. So it means that now we have two descriptors, something related to the local variance and something related to the local regularity of the image. And what we propose is to reformulate the data term like this. So Vn plus Ghn minus log 2 of the wavelet leaders. So this is the standard quadratic term. And you can reformulate it as L2 norm of A with a vector of VH minus log 2 of the wavelet leader. So this quantity is fixed. V and H are the quantity you want to estimate, and A is the matrix with this form. So with this new data term, there are several interesting properties. The first one is that this data term has a closed form expression for the proximity operator. So here is the expression. So you want to compute the proximity operator of phi, which is this data term. And it is written here. So it's a standard L2 norm. And so you know that the expression of the proximity operator of the standard L2 norm is this one. So then you need to compute A star A to invert A star R plus identity and also to compute A star log 2 ln. So what you need to be sure is that these computations are easy to do if you want to have a closed form expression. And so you can see on the two, so the output of the proximity operator is P and Q, are P and Q. And you see that the way to obtain, for instance, P is to add V, so the input quantity, plus S, which will be a vector related to the log leader. Then you multiply by a scalar, because R2 is obtained from this quantity and it's a scalar quantity. You do something similar on this side, and you divide also by a scalar. You do the same for Q, and thus you obtain this result. So the first nice thing is that the proximity operator has a closed form expression. The second nice thing is that the data fidelity term is strongly convex. And so that is a very interesting property when you deal with some proximal algorithm, because it's a good way to obtain fast algorithm. And what we can remark is that the strong convexity constant will depend on the scale on which we perform the regression. So you see that in the matrix A star A, you have this parameter R0, R1, and R2, which are explained like that. And it consists in a sum over the scale of the scale power M. And then you can choose to perform the regression between the scale 1 and scale, let's say 4 or 5, or from scale 2 until scale 4 or 5. And depending on that, the convex constant will change. And this is the kind of you can have a closed form expression also for the strong convex constant. So now we have built a data term which is strongly convex. And thus we proposed to add on it some standard TV penalization. So here we propose a TV penalization based on that allows to favor a joint change between V and the local variance and the local regularity. And by doing that, then you obtain a strongly convex minimization problem, which means that you will be able to obtain an efficient algorithm. You are able to combine the estimation procedure with the segmentation. And you are also able to perform a joint estimation of the local variance and the local regularity. So then in terms of implementation, we use the accelerated strongly convex Chambolles-Poc algorithm. And if in order to have a method which is parameter free, what we propose is to select the parameter lambda by using a generalized Stein unbiased risk estimator. So more details are provided in this article. Yeah, I will not go into the detail about that. And with this joint estimation and segmentation procedure, the kind of results we obtain are this one. So here is the mask. So at some location, you will have different variance and different local regularity. But at the end, what you are interested is to find this these two labeled image that is very close to the texture we consider in multi-phase flow. And thus, this is the method if you do it in two steps. So first estimating the local regularity and then performing the TV on it. So you will obtain this result, which are not too bad. But you see that if you combine both, the interface are much better. And here it's also another method of the literature, also combining the estimation and the segmentation based on matrix factorization. So here are some results in terms based on multi-phase flow data. And you can see so here is the image to zoom, and here is the comparison with the different method of the state of the art. And here it's also for the same kind of data, a comparison with a morphological tool that the physicists used in the lab. And so you can clearly see that using this kind of method allows us to improve the contour detection. So for the first step, you see that we were able to propose a one-step texture segmentation procedure. We pay effort to design an appropriate data term, and it was good for us because by paying attention in the design of the data term, we then have access to a strongly convex data term, and then we can take care of this property in order to build a fast algorithm. So a toolbox is available if you want to test this procedure with the automatic tuning of the hyperparameter on GitHub. Now I'm going to present the second part of our contribution. I'll try to be quite fast to present here. So the second part of this talk is dedicated to joint, let's say, estimation and interface detection. And so we go back to the discrete Mumford-Shah model. So the idea is the following. You have an original image. This image, or it can be also a graph, can be degraded by a linear operator A and noise. And then you obtain your observation G. then your goal is to recover both the U and the E from the degraded image. So to do that, we propose to consider this Mumford-Shell-like model in the discrete setting. So you have the data term. So the data term can be a L2 norm between A, U, and G, but it could also be a Kullback-Leibler divergence. And here you have the coupling term, which is here to impose smoothness everywhere, because D here going to model the discrete difference operator, and E is going to model the to model the interface. So E is located between the pixels and is going to have value by minimizing such a criterion, which is going to be equal to either 0 or 1. 0 if you have no interface, 1 if you have an interface. So if you have an interface, this quantity will be equal to 0, so you will not impose smoothness on it. If now E equals 1, then if E equals 0, then you are going to impose the smoothness. You see that by using only this coupling term, you will favor E equal 1 everywhere. So a good way to ensure to avoid 1 everywhere is to impose sparsity on E, and the goal of R is to obtain a sparse solution. So now we are going to identify the assumption over L and R to design an algorithmic scheme with convergence guarantee and to have a fast solution. So you see that this minimization problem is different from the previous one, because now we are not anymore convex, because here we minimize with respect to U and E. And here you have the coupling term, and due to the coupling term, you do not have anymore the convexity. So the standard way to solve this problem is to have recourse to alternating minimization. And most of the time, you do not have convergence actually, if you want to have convergence to a critical point, you need to ensure that the minimum is attained at each iteration. And that could be very difficult to ensure in practice. So it has been proposed by Attouch and collaborators to not only minimize psi, but to minimize psi plus a quadratic term, both for the minimization with respect to U and the minimization with respect to E. When you are doing that, then you can see that it just be summarized as the proximity operator of psi. And in the context of our minimization problem is the proximity operator of the data term plus the smoothness term. For the second part, it will be the proximity operator of the smoothness term plus the penalization over E. The main difficulty here is to compute the proximity operator of this sum of two functions. And because it's well known in the literature that most of the time this property is not satisfied, except for some very specific choice of phi 1 and phi 2. And so another alternative proposed by Bolt and collaborator is to linearize with respect to the coupling term here, which is differentiable. And then you need only to compute the proximity operator of the data term, followed by a gradient descent with respect to the smooth function. The main limitation here is that now the step size CK and DK are bounded by a local Lipschitz constant, which was not the case in the previous PAM algorithm. And so from a practical point of view, have a constraint on the step size mean that we are going to be most of the time slowest. So what we propose to consider is to consider an hybrid scheme where we will have a linearized version for the update of U and the proximity operator of R plus the coupling term for the update of E. We can do that because we will see that the proximity operator of the sum of two functions have nice properties. And for some specific choice of R, we could compute have a closed form of the proximity operator, but it's not true for the first part. So we only relax the constraint on D for the update of E. And so the result we have is the following, is that if R is a separable function, then the proximity operator of R plus the smoothing term has a closed form expression, which is expressed here. So typically, if sigma E is the absolute value, so RE will be the L1 norm, here you will find the proximity operator of the absolute value with the parameter lambda over 2 beta duk plus dt. So in the literature, if R now is the Ambrosio-Tortorelli approximation, it's not separable, so we can't apply it, but we can apply it for the L1 norm or for also the quadratic L1 that we propose, which is a kind of, so you have Huber, which is a smooth approximation of the L1, and you have Beru, which is the inverse. You have the non-smooth part close to 0, and then you have the quadratic behavior far from 0. And we propose this function because it's a way to be closer from the Ambrosio-Tortorelli approximation. And for this function, we have a closed form expression for the associated proximity operator. So now I'm going to conclude with a few illustrations on image and comparison to the state of the art. So here is a noisy image. And we propose to compare the TV procedure with the work by Strykalowski and Kremers and the discrete ATI proposed by Foer and collaborators and the proposed method. We can see that in terms of SNR, our method is comparable, maybe a little better. TV is better, but then in terms of contour detection, we see that our procedure outperforms the other method. Here we proposed a comparison for a large data set for a lot of image in order to compare our proposed DMS with the state-of-the-art method. So our method is in green, while and so you can see that in terms of SNR we are quite always better, and also in terms of CM. In terms of Jacquard, it's much difficult to see if it has a good behavior, because most of the time the labeled database where the interface are proposed are so the labeling of an image is complicated. So when you want to perform that on a huge database, it's also complicated. And just maybe to conclude on this part, here is the presentation of the versus of PALM with respect to SLPalm we propose. So if you do PALM, if you remember, you have it's the alternating minimization strategy where you have a proximity operator followed by a gradient descent step for both U and E. And in the SLPalm we propose, we just compute the proximity operator for the update of E. And by doing that, we were allowed to have a larger step size. And so it's what we observe here. So if we compare PALM and SLPalm with the same parameter step size, we have the same behavior, but with SLPalm, we have the opportunity. So, okay, decay is going to be reduced, but the step size will be increased. And so if you increase the step size, then you increase the convergence. And so you can clearly see that if then you want to deal with large scale image, it's very important to have access to such a fast algorithm. So you can implement it on for convolution, for matrix estimation, and it also works. So now I'm going to conclude my presentation. So on the second part, so we proposed here a discrete Mumford-Shah model. It's a model we proposed. So let's say a more general model where the data term can involve Kullback-Leibler divergence, where the penalization over the edge could be a separable function, but a lot of separable function can be considered. We propose an algorithmic procedure based on that, which is fast because we were able to compute the proximity operator in the update of E. And we are currently working on the automatic selection of the hyperparameter in such a context. And there is also a toolbox available for this part of the work. My general conclusion will be based on the timeline that I used from the beginning of my presentation. So the first part were more dedicated to models, the second part to proximal algorithm, and the last part you see from, let's say, the work of Lequin about LISTA. You have, let's say, the deep learning array for solving inverse problem. My point of view with recent work we had is that when you want to unfold algorithm, and if you want to integrate the knowledge of models and algorithms that we built from a lot of years, most of the time what we need is to design simple model and simple algorithm. And if you design simple model and simple algorithm, then you are able to build your network quite easily. And so it's a good news because it's a good way to continue to develop more and more advanced model, but in a simple way. So thank you very much for your attention. And here is the work related to my presentation.
Thank you very much, Nelly. It was very clear and very interesting. So there is some time for questions. So I invite everyone who has questions to write them in the chat or using the Q&A button, and I will just read them to you. Maybe I can start with a quick one. On the first part of your presentation, I think it's maybe an obvious question when you talk about segmentation and texture, but like robustness with respect to noise, even in the estimation of your slopes. I mean, in your examples, I think you had like images where there was so much noise.
Yes.
But when you have texture and noise, are you able somehow to discriminate these or?
Okay, so actually it's a good question. I would say that we don't test, for instance, when we create, you know, the this texture typically, yeah. We could have add noise on it. Actually, we did not, and it's the same for the other one. I would suspect that it won't affect a lot the estimation, because you see in the experiment in multi-phase flow, we have here, the data are texture. We can assume that they are close to a monofractal behavior, but the acquisition is noisy. Yeah. So in a sense, we can see on the results we have here that the result is robust to this noisy data. But it's a good question, and we did not, we don't have experiment where we add noise on it.
Yeah. Was just thinking about it because also you mentioned that due to the joint modeling, basically, you are somehow estimating local variances. So I was thinking if we could use somehow the same machinery to estimate noise variances from noisy data. So somehow forgetting about the texture segmentation, but just having images with noise, if we can somehow estimate, use these as a local variance estimator.
It's a good question.
Just a curiosity.
But okay. You mean you have homogeneous noise through the image?
Or maybe even non-homogeneous in the sense that maybe since your estimation is local, you can have different variances.
Actually, I think that when you want to estimate for instance, the variance, you already have very nice estimator, which work very well, also based on wavelets. When you use the median of the absolute value of the wavelet of the high frequency, it works very well.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't see any questions, so I invite everyone to ask some. And just one other question I had on the second part. So I think somehow you said it, but I missed it. You have convergence guarantees, no, for these algorithms?
Yes. Okay. I was fast on it, and it was very important. So thanks to ask the question. So yes, it's an important part. Actually, the proof are very similar to the proof for PALM or for PAM. So it's the same, and we have convergence guarantees. But one point which is important to have the convergence guarantees is to have the closed form of the proximity operator.
Sure.
It's not like, you know, when you in standard proximal algorithm, you can have some if you commit some error in the computation of the proximity operator, you can still have the convergence because you have this error that you can commit at each iteration. But here it's not the case. So you really need to have a closed form expression for them.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, so questions from panelists, from the audience? I think we're a little bit late, so maybe, yeah. So, okay, if there is no more question, I think I thank Nelly again on behalf of the organizers. And I think I see you all next Wednesday for our next seminar. Thank you again, Nelly.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.